My trauma was caused by the incident, April 1993, watching my friend bleed to death on the pavement after he was stabbed by a number of white youths because he was black. I cried and cried and cried for days because I couldn't understand why these guys felt that they needed to attack us because we were black. What made it worse was that the police seemed to have a problem in arresting these guys, even though they knew who these suspects were. They seemed to have had a problem. And at that time also, when I was just 18, there were rumours going around that these suspects had friends in the police and they were going to come and get me. That twisted my head. And I suffered. And because of that, I got what they call post-traumatic stress disorder. And I had it for a few years. And it followed me through the major events of my Stephen Lawrence life. But then I said to myself, well, look, I can't allow this to happen. I can't allow myself to become a nobody. Because for some reason, I happened to be following Steve home that day. And I didn't have to be there. Because to go home to my home was a different way, a different direction completely. Every single emotion that I went through in that Stephen Lawrence life is in this book. The pain, the anguish, hurt, times when I felt defenseless, the times when I felt that there was no hope, nothing's going to ever change, the times when I would cry myself to sleep because I couldn't understand what was going on. Because of that, I'm able to speak to you today and speak to you clearly without breaking down. Because yes, the emotions are still here when I'm speaking to you, and while I'm speaking to you now, I'm remembering things that happened. But I can control the emotions now, but before I couldn't. The book also goes on and talks about my relationship with the police, because we all have a relationship with the police. All of us do. It's that some of us have nice relationships and some of us have bad relationships. And me and the police started off on the wrong foot. And it was all because I said those guys called us niggers. On the night of the murder, the police refused to accept that we were there minding our own business, waiting for a bus, and these guys come along, called us niggers, and stabbed Steve. They couldn't understand that. As far as they were concerned, they wasn't calling us niggers. That was Steve. They was calling Steve my nickname that I didn't know about, because they knew him and I didn't know him. And then when it wasn't that, it was, oh, maybe they called him something else.
I don't believe what you're saying. They wouldn't have called you that, would they? So what really happened? I don't believe what you're saying. What did they really call you? What were you doing there?
Not realising what would happen after, because I didn't know it was going to be a big case in Britain, but I was just sticking to my guns and the facts were they called us niggers. And so from then, the relationship between me and the police went downhill. I started to do things in the community around racism, injustice, inequality, discrimination, victimization. I met up with Alex and Movement for Justice, and at last there was a voice in the community that could speak out against police brutality and deaths in custody and everything else. Now, I didn't have that back then. I had my family, but my family had never experienced anything like that before. Nobody in my community, nobody I knew had ever experienced what I experienced. So I didn't have anybody to talk to. The police didn't organise no form of counselling, because as far as they were concerned, I was a witness I wasn't a victim of the same attack, I was a witness. So there was no victim support, because victim support followed what the police said, and the police were saying I wasn't a victim, I was only a witness. So for those years, I was by myself. My family were there, but I kept them at arm's length because I didn't want them involved. Especially when you got rumours going around about gangsters, police corruption. I was in fear for my life, but I was also in fear of my family's life. And at that time, my family was more important than me. And that's how I saw things at that time. And the police offered to protect me. And obviously I'm going to say yes, because there's nobody else. We don't have private organisations that protect us. And while I was being protected by the police, and never did I feel safe, never did I feel, okay, nothing can happen to me because the police are protecting me. That never happened. I felt more frightened having the police. But it was a situation where I feel that I may have been even more frightened than how I was if I didn't have the police. So I was stuck. It was to satisfy my mind to have the police there, just in case something happened, there would be somebody to talk about it. But it turned out that one of the police officers that was protecting me was a friend of one of the suspects that, imagine that, this boy stabs my friend to death, and his dad, one of his dad's closest friends, is protecting him. That should never happen. But it shows you the level of corruption that was in the police. And that's in London. I'm just reminding you of things that you know already. And from this day, please try not to turn a blind eye to racism, discrimination, injustice, inequality, and victimization. Thanks for listening.